is it important for businesses to build a learning organization?
It's not important if the business doesn't have to change. So if the business has to do one thing, and doing that one thing, there's always a market for, it never has to change. Then it doesn't have to learn anything. But what we know in 2013 is there is no such business like that anymore. So if you are not learning, you're not moving forward, and you can't be competitive. You can't even see what's coming towards you. For instance, what good is it if you're building the best buggy whip for a horse and buggy when cars are the disruptive innovation that's on the landscape? If you truly are committed to leading your organization and taking it to the next level, you have to always be making sure you're not building the best buggy whip. And that means being forward-thinking, not just in the traditional operational sense of process improvement, total quality, all of those good efforts that have value. Oh, absolutely, no question. You have to be doing what you're currently doing optimally, efficiently, and being very effective in executing that optimal efficiency. If you're not at the same time thinking about where the puck is going to go to skate over to it, you're going to lose in the pace of our economy. That means thinking differently. Look, take for example higher education, right? The big brouhaha in higher education now on whether online has a place. Is it effective? Is it going to overtake classroom education? Does the MOOC really add any value? I think a learning organization has to look at that and say, we have to figure this one out. There's some great value here. How can we optimize it? But it requires thinking differently. Frequently what you see happening when educators and even technical groups that are supporting educators who are trying to learn to teach online, they look at the best practices in the classroom and they try to figure out how those best practices fit online. And I respectfully submit that that's wrong, because what you have to do is take the venue for what it is and capitalize on it. We have to also accept the fact that education is extremely expensive nowadays. And for young people to come out of college with 6 figures worth of loans in an economy that can be profoundly hard to find a job, then what's the value proposition of education? Any hard-nosed business person would start asking for the business case there, right? That's just one example. A learning organization allows people to thrive and allows the business to thrive because it will never settle. I like to use this term called restless excellence. In my classes and in my business, I'm always looking to develop this value of restlessness. Restlessness is saying, what are we doing well today and how can it be better? This is different than typical ongoing improvement. It's really willing to blow up the model and think about it differently. It is easy to look at what you are not doing well and having to re-engineer it. Those skills are a ticket to entry in performance excellence. The difficulty is being able to see what you're doing well, how it could be done differently. Are you restless enough? That is restless excellence. And I think that's what learning organizations do, because they're willing to question themselves. They're willing to question their assumptions. That's a hard thing to do when you're being successful. It's also a hard thing to do when you're breaking the mold. When Merill Lynch hired me to launch their chief learning office and to build Merill Lynch University, think about who they hired. They hired someone who was admittedly a very successful prosecutor, a really unique hire by AT&T Wireless. Jim Barksdale led that organization. This man dreams in color and thinks in three-dimensional chess. So he was hiring somebody very, very unique to not only solve his fraud problem, but lead the solution across the industry. That man hired a prosecutor. I guarantee you, traditional recruiters would have never even looked at me. Why are you going to hire somebody who's, right? Then Merill Lynch hires this prosecutor turned business person to launch their CLO. I didn't have a background in traditional learning and development. They were really thinking differently. They were coloring outside the lines. And that's a trend that I think is a smart one in corporate America. You see, even in HR, you see business people being brought in to head HR. At the end of the day, if you're a good leader, you have an HR mindset. and you have the HR mindset, that's a strategic business mindset. The sort of things that I did at Merill Lynch, I was doing for my team of 500. Because as a leader, that's what I needed. I had people like Rala Huff developing me in that way. The hiring of a business person in CLO, I think, recognizes the importance of a learning organization that you can execute against. One of the most common mistakes you see happening is we offer fabulous learning programs, terrific electronic profiles, but none of it is applied to the business. We send people to exciting offsites, but nothing is applied to the business. If you're not pulling through the learning, then you're having a wonderful experience, but you're not adding value to the business. The ability to pull through the learning and make it embed itself in the organization is what causes transformation. And that's where I think many learning and development efforts can fall short. And that's the trick.